in terms of wandering around trying to figure out what's happening where. I mean, that's why we have that weed committee. It seems to me we need to, for lack of a better system, arm them or give them, or give ourselves the authority to go in and enforce if we can't get compliance. And so that's just a thought. I mean, is that something we ought to be considering?
We already do that with code enforcement, Frank. So it's very similar to our snow removal. If somebody does not remove snow from the sidewalk, we send a letter and then they have a certain number of days to remediate the situation.
Right.
So
we
that
do
is already in place in our regulations. Again, staff time is obviously a challenge when it comes to our code enforcement side. And weeds, our code right now only requires that, noxious weeds be dealt with. Oftentimes you'll hear complaints about dandelions and those type of things. Those can just be mowed. I mean, they really don't. And they don't qualify as a noxious weed.
Dandelions.
Yeah. Even though they're everywhere. But the bees really like them, so.
Yeah.
There's that.
Horses like them, I can tell you that for sure. Okay, well, it just seems to me, particularly with the noxious weeds, we need to be figuring out what we need to do to change the losing game, in my view. And thanks. The other letter that we received this evening, John asked that we discuss, and that's a complaint from Mr. Gillum and Mr. Berg regarding how we assess and collect our impact fees. Dana, do you have any comments on that letter?
I do. The city staff has been communicating with Mr. Gillman and Mr. Burke. They were actually here earlier. I'm surprised they didn't get up and speak, to be honest, but their letter was in the packet. So the city staff has been providing them a lot of documentation. And where this all started, I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure if Mr. Gillman was looking at doing an addition on his home, and this brought to light our impact fees. But I did receive, his report and what you have in the packet. I've already done an internal, review, I guess is what I would say, investigation into the accusations or alleged issues. We did find an error in our program calculator, which is an Excel spreadsheet, in which we account for the number of fixtures per building. We're aware of that issue. It hasn't been in effect this whole time, so it's a very limited window that we're gonna have to look at, which is about 2 years. And we'll go back and we will look at how that impacts the buildings that had applied during that period, and if any refunds were required. That is state law. We're not trying to avoid state law by any means. The other allegations that Mr. Gillman is making is that our impact fees are developed and being implemented incorrectly. I had a call with FCS Group, who performed our 2018 impact fee update, and confirmed that there was no change in methodology from our HDR initial study that created our impact fees in 2007. In fact, all that we have done is we updated the capital improvements that were planned based on the CIP that was available at the time, and then and any planned projects that council was discussing. And so those changes, though, would not have created an issue in the way that we've collected or assessed our impact fees. It is correct that we no longer generally will issue a 5/8 inch meter, which is pretty standard. You're seeing that quite a bit now just because they wear out quicker. Homes are tending to be built with larger number of fixture units, more outdoor services, more bathrooms, etc. And keep in mind, your smaller apartments, they're going to be for workforce housing is on one master meter, so it's not quite the same. There are numbers thrown out in the report that I cannot confirm if they're accurate or not. Again, we haven't done our audit to see what type of refunds are due to any developers. We are working on that. It's the same staff that is working on Republic Services contract with garbage and recycling and new billing and a website updates. So we again are still very, very impacted by staff time. I know that Mr. Gillman and Mr. Berg both would like an independent audit of our impact fees. I am not opposed to that, but I also question the use of taxpayer dollars to audit something that has gone through a significant public process. We had paid FCS Group to prepare that report. I personally had actually worked with FCS Group as the finance director at the time. But again, if the council wants to do an audit, if the state comes and audits us, I'm an open book. There is nothing that I'm trying to hide. If we've done something wrong, like I said, with the fixture units, I'm absolutely okay with saying, you know what, we have an error. Here's what we're gonna do to fix it. And so, like I said, we've provided a lot of information. We have since asked that they, complete a records request form because the staff time that's been taken to respond with documents has exceeded the standard. 15 minutes is when we start to look at records request forms, and that's standard across all individuals who request documents from the city. So many of what has been requested could have been found online anyways, but so with that, if the council is interested in an audit, I leave that up to you. I do believe that we are assessing impact fees correctly based on the conversation I had with FCS Group. I am waiting on Todd's email to me that will explain more about his report, and I do plan to forward that on to Mr. Gillman as well. And again, when we had met with them at the end of August, Ben Dahlman and I met with them, and we agreed that, we're gonna do that audit, but it's gonna take a few months. There's no way that we're gonna have the staff capacity to do it right away. And they seemed at least amenable at the time to that. So I will say that he has submitted his letters to the state of Montana. If they might be looking at investigating us again, like I said, open book here. It saves me the work of having to try to respond to all of these comments. But then also, I know that NBC Montana reached out to me today. They plan to interview Mr. Gillman on Wednesday, so I did say, please, I would like to be able to at least provide what information I know right now, so that there is not miscommunication with the public because of some of the numbers in that report. I cannot confirm whether they're accurate or not. That's the update.
Any other questions for Dana on that matter? From council?
The public might not know Dana's background, but she was our finance director for 5 years, 4 years, 5. And before that, she audited cities around the state for a number of years as well. So she knows city government and the funding for city government inside and out. And so she's really bright, and I really trust her in all financial things too. So I just wanted to reassure the public, when we have people accuse us of something, we do research it, of course, but she does know what she's talking about too.
I guess my only comment would be that I'm comfortable with not having an outside audit, and I think Danny caught the imperfections in our spreadsheets, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Quite frankly, the way this letter is written, I could find a lot of flaws in it too. So I'll just specifically, it's like total water, sewer impacts have tripled. Well, yeah, we probably wrote a lot more building permits in 2021 than we did in 2018. So it's a figures don't lie and liars don't figure kind of statement, which I really don't care for. And so I'm comfortable, and I think that's why we hired FCS to begin with, was to do an audit of those impact fees to see if we were charging enough so we're being fair to the existing residents in this community, which is the whole important part of impact fees. And we all know that impact fee books are about this thick, and this much of it tells you why you should do it, and then the last amount of it is all telling you how to defend yourself in court and make sure that there is an actual nexus and link between what you're charging and what you're not. That's what FCS does for a living. That's their specialty. That's why we hired them. So I'm very comfortable that we've done that. And I think that we just proceed as we are right now. And I think if there's refunds due, then I know we'll get those refunds back to people. If we did make mistakes, we're honest group of folks, and that will happen.
May I say I concur. Any other comments on the letters? Okay, with that, we'll start with Rebecca. Any further comments this evening?
The only thing is, I'm sorry I get so upset about water issues, but I really do get upset about them. So Craig, would you mind following up about that wetlands thing?
Yep, I'd be happy to.
All right, thank you. And the only other thing is I am planning a candidates forum for Tuesday, October 26th at the O'Shaughnessy, tentatively.